right, we got to talk about censorship. We got to talk about suppression. We got to talk about going after the media and what it means for the future of free speech. Free speech, free speech, free speech. And we talk about free speech here on the show a lot. We talk about, what's going to happen with the media, what's going to happen to all of us, especially as we worry about the jackboot of censorship. But I want to pull up this video here because it's none other than that nutless wonder himself, Bernie Sanders, talking about the dangers of Trump. But I think he's forgetting something.
He's going after the media. I don't know if any of you saw it. He is now wanting to take away CBS's license because they did a story that criticized him. Oh, my word. CBS criticized him. Oh, let's drive them out of business. How terrible is that? He has sued ABC. He has sued Meta. He has sued the Des Moines Register. This guy cannot take criticism. He can dish it out all right, but he can't take it. And I say to Mr. Trump, if you can't take criticism, get out of the political process. This is a democracy.
And I get it. I get why people feel a certain way about Bernie Sanders. I get it. But see, the thing is, I think he forgets that there was another president who was more than happy to silence criticism. It was none other than Democrat Joe Biden.
To me, the idea that we can have a culture where authority determines what's true and false in science is the very antithesis of science. Unfortunately, during the pandemic, the Biden administration used its power to essentially silence and suppress the voices of countless numbers of scientists who on social media and other settings. I want to change that, and President Trump wants to change that. Secretary Kennedy wants to change that. What has to happen is that if there are dissenting scientific views, people who disagree with me, they should have the say. And we should be encouraging a culture where scientists can talk to each other without fear of reprisals, without fear of suppression, and without fear of censorship. That is going to be a major priority of mine to use the sort of the influence of the NIH to make that happen. To me,
Now, I want to pull this up here because this is rather important. The CEOs of NPR and PBS said they're looking into options to challenge the Trump administration following the president's executive order to cut off public funding to the news and media organizations. We're looking at whatever options are available to us, said NPR CEO Catherine Mayer on Sunday's Face the Nation when asked if they would file a lawsuit. I think it's a little preliminary for us to be able to speak to specific strategies that we would take. We have never seen a circumstance like this, and obviously we're going to be pushing back very hard, said PBS CEO Paul Kruger. As of May 2nd, at least 135 lawsuits have been filed to at least temporarily pause some of the Trump administration's executive orders. Jesus Christ, 135. What's wrong with people? What's wrong with people? God, there are days where I sometimes think, yeah, America's great. And other times, like, what the hell? What the hell's wrong with everything? This whole ship is starting to sink, folks, including over issues such as firing of thousands of federal employees, the Department of Government Efficiency, immigration policies, tariffs, and others. NPR's mayor and potential funding cuts would hit local stations and their audiences most. NPR has 246 member organizations with newsrooms in every state. Federal funding cuts would be damaging to journalists covering their local communities, especially at a time where we're seeing an advance of news deserts across the nation. 20% of Americans don't have access to another local source of news. The impact of this could really be devastating, particularly in rural communities. Now, this says a lot about the Trump administration going after media. I don't think it's necessary to go after PBS and NPR. The way I see it, all these old entities like CBS, ABC, MSNBC, NBC, Fox News, CNN, all these institutions are going to die and collapse under their own weight. It doesn't need to be instigated or pushed by the Trump administration. They will die on their own. What this is, in many ways, looks like Trump's attempt to get back his petty revenge at corporate media. Well, and also, yes, NPR and PBS, they are quote unquote public media. But I think, when you look at some of their funders, you got to raise an eyebrow here and there on what kind of narrative is being presented on public access television. But what I find disappointing is that in the long run game, you don't have to lift a finger to see these institutions die. Americans, especially now in this day and age, we get most of our news and information online. Is this the correct path to do? Not necessarily. We need traditional media like newspapers, yes, television, radio, all of it. But we're all interconnected with our cell phones and the internet. It is an inevitable foregone conclusion that there will be a mass extinction event and that we are all going to be witnessing it firsthand, especially as corporate media and all these other institutions are going to start firing and laying off people. It's a waste of time to be using government resources to try and halt any kind of funding, because at the end of the day, what matters is the views and the eyeballs. It matters who's going to be watching the content, when they're going to be watching the content, and more importantly, whether that station or network is still going to be relevant in the next few years. We saw firsthand after November 5th the absolute decline and continuous decline of CNN and MSNBC. But now we also have to address the hypocrisy of one Bernie Sanders. You see, Bernie is talking about Trump going after the media, silencing and suppressing critics. But what about Biden during his 4 years? Under Biden's administration, we have witnessed a massive wave of censorship and suppression. Under Biden's administration, we saw a massive wave of silence and cancel culture. And we saw how the internet was being weaponized to not only go after independent media, but also the supporters of independent media or anyone who is a free thinker. During those 4 years, we saw the rise of, yes, the censorship machine that Rubio said was dismantled. But, hey, I'm pressing X to doubt, because when you create something like that, everybody's going to want to control it. We already know how thin-skinned Democratic and Republican lawmakers are when it comes down to criticism and when it comes down to narratives not fitting their profile. Case in point, I want to pull up something here, a Coca-Cola classic from back in the day, when Matt Orfala put together this great collage of when the Hunter Biden laptop was silenced and how corporate media worked with the Democrats and government to keep this story silenced.
Incriminating evidence allegedly found on a laptop belonging to Biden.
Some sort of Russian disinformation campaign effort.
One eternity later.
Biden emails finally authenticated according to the New York Times.
It's rewind time.
It's a lie.
Altered or fake, unverified emails.
The story did not quite land due to the lack of verification.
Listen,
verified.
what can't be verified?
The laptop.
Why do you say that?
Well, because it can't be verified.
I don't even want to report this. This is one of the most powerful families in Washington.
Liz, I'm a journalist.
Okay, I would love if you guys would start doing that verification.
No, we're not going to do your work for you.
It's a journalist's
job.
Not anymore.
For all we know, these emails are made up.
Not really stories, just pure distractions. No serious journalist should fall for it.
It's a journalist's job to find out if this is verified.
The bottom line is we cannot confirm the story.
Experts say the emails cannot be authenticated.
The mainstream media is not reporting on this story because we can't authenticate this material.
The Hunter Biden laptop material is genuine.
This is a classic example of the right-wing media machine.
It just lacks credibility. The fact that it appeared in the New York Post,
the only place low enough to put this orphan bastard story in print.
Obvious disinformation.
It is so obviously a Russian operation.
So obviously disinformation.
So obviously a Russian plot. Tell me why it's so obviously a Russian plot to you.
This is just classic textbook Soviet Russian tradecraft at work.
Right, exactly. And this is classic, very classic Russian disinformation tactic.
Your classic disinformation campaign.
We shouldn't look at it as anything other than a Russian disinformation operation.
Known Kremlin disinformation.
Russians would be my number one guess.
Obviously, Russia.
Russian disinformation operation.
Russian disinformation.
Pushing Russian disinformation.
It does bear the hallmarks of Russian disinformation.
Hunter Biden's story is Russian disinfo.
Hunter Biden's laptop looks like it's tied to Vladimir Putin in Moscow.
Is that laptop yours?
I don't know. I truly...
You don't know?
The serious answer is that I truly do not know the answer to that.
Did you leave a laptop with a repairman in Wilmington? Not that you remember.
No. I truly don't know.
Are you missing a laptop?
Not that I know of. What?
This whole operation looks right out of the Kremlin playbook.
The playbook of Russian disinformation.
Russian disinformation put into the haystack.
Russian disinfo.
Sounds like bullshit. I mean, who takes a laptop with their most personal information, drops it off, and never comes back for it?
You read the book and you'll realize that I wasn't keeping tabs on possessions very well for about a 4-year period of time.
A Russian disinformation campaign.
Disinformation from the Russians. Putin is trying very hard to spread disinformation about Joe Biden.
The Biden campaign says this is Russian disinformation.
There's overwhelming evidence that the Russians are engaged. Russians are engaged. It's a Russian plan.
Russian disinformation.
Nobody believes it except his and his good friend Rudy Giuliani.
So could have been yours.
Of course, certainly.
Oh, that's hot. That's hot.
History will expose you all as fools and useful idiots for the Russians. The idiocy, the sheer idiocy.
50 former intelligence officials signed on to a letter yesterday saying that the New York Post story about Hunter Biden's emails has all of the classic earmarks of a Russian disinformation campaign.
Russia, Giuliani.
Don't trust anything that he's telling you. This is Russian disinformation.
Russian disinformation campaign. Russian disinformation.
Russian disinformation campaign.
Russian disinformation meant to harm our democracy.
Disinformation by the Russians.
The fruits of a foreign intelligence operation.
Now, I want to be clear on this one here, all right? And first of all, major shout out to Matt Orfalo, okay? Because that video is still relevant even in this day and age. Hey, Bernie, what was your excuse when Biden was censoring and going after independent media and other people who were critical of your administration? Or your good friend's administration. Sorry, Bernie's administration. That would mean Bernie Sanders would have to have a spine, a heart, a soul, ball sack to even push forward, which he lacks all of those, okay? But Bernie's going after Trump, and I get it. Hold on. To be clear here, Trump is now giving Biden a run for his money, and I do find it very fascinating and concerning that you would want to go after NPR and PBS, going after their funding. And, you know, when we talk about waste, okay, fine. Yes, Doge found some waste, but all those things that have been called out still got funded with a continuous resolution that was passed by Chucky Boy Schumer. So nothing was really effectively cut. Like, all these big cuts didn't go after the things that are wasting our money the most. All this is smoke and mirrors. You know, now I know why the Roman Empire truly did fall, because no one's keeping an eye on the accounts, on the money, on everything, and this is how things fall apart. This is how systems and institutions fall apart. And Bernie Sanders wants you to be afraid of Trump going after the media. But the thing is, the groundwork was laid out long before Trump. It was happening, first of all, under Biden's administration, which, again, we saw firsthand, a massive wave of censorship, but also happened during Trump's first term. And maybe, again, you know, you have to look at also who was helping him out at the time, the current Congress in both sessions. And then you have to look at the Obama administration. You have to look at every institution, every administration that came before Trump. The groundwork for media suppression was happening long before even the internet became a thing. And when the internet did become a force of power, I think we all can recall a time when YouTube was different. All these social media platforms were different. Now, it wasn't perfect. Yes, there were jerks, there were scumbags, there were bad guys, there were evil people out there. I get it. And you know what? Evil must be opposed, as always. But as soon as people were leaving traditional media, corporate media, and the politicians were starting to get scared. Why do you think there was the first adpocalypse? You think it was just because to protect people? I mean, the first adpocalypse, they were trying to go after PewDiePie and everybody else who was like a major YouTube influencer at the time. Yeah, that didn't solve anything. All what it did is create a system of hypocrisy and madness all around. What I find disappointing and disgusting with Bernie Sanders even talking about media suppression or going after the media is that he remained silent when the Democrats and Joe Biden were doing that. He didn't speak out. He didn't talk about it. And now, because Trump is in office, it's okay to fight. Just like how Premier Jayapal is talking about fighting for Medicare for all. Because Trump is in office, it's okay to bring Medicare for all on the House floor for a vote, even though Democrats do not even have a solid majority on the House floor, and they sure as hell don't have a majority in the Senate. We see AOC with Bernie doing fight the oligarchy. We see, finally, Cenk Uygur and Rebellion PAC. And yeah, we see David Hogg and his attempt to try and take on incumbents. Now that there's a Republican boogeyman, it's okay to fight. It's finally okay to fight. What took you so long? Did you not want to shake the system, raise the ruckus, or hold Biden's feet to the fire? Or were you just following your orders, reading from a script? Oh, but wait, that's what Democrats do all the time. Read from the script. They talk about media suppression and censorship, but you know what? They're more than happy to do it themselves.